he said, how many people here have been affected by a miscarriage? And like, it was insane. I would say like 90% of the hands went up. It blew my mind. Hey there, welcome to The Journey. This is Brandon DeVere. Thank you, as always, for tuning in and sharing your time with me. I do appreciate that. Today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about a podcast that I listened to today, and kind of in conjunction with two things I've been seeing kind of circulating the social media rounds, and also a phone call that I received today. So the podcast I listened to today, I was out on a walk this morning, and this podcast I just it was interesting, the way that I found this podcast. I went to ChatGPT and I said, I want something motivating this morning, or give me a podcast that's motivating, but also doesn't make me feel terrible about myself. And the reason that, if you've heard me talk about it before, some of the things I'm not a huge fan of when it comes to coaches and some self improvement and personal development and things like that, is that when we get too far to the scale where we start feeling the author or whoever's talking about it is like beating us down so much that we aren't so much into the we end up getting negative gains from it, because we just can't get out of a funk in that way. So I wanted to hear something today, a little upbeat, and as I was on my walk. But it was called the Happiness Lab, is the one that I found. ChatGPT gave me about 5-6 different options, and I scrolled through, saw one that I looked at, and then went to Overcast, is where I listen to most of my podcasts. And I scrolled through and I saw, okay, this one, it was called You're Good Enough, or Know That You're Good Enough, or something along those lines. But it's the podcast is Dr. Lori Santos. She is the host of it, and then the guest that was on there was Dr. Ellen Hendrickson. So Dr. Hendrickson was putting out some pretty good ideas and things like that we probably all need to hear, really, especially about perfection. And I'll get to a call here in a minute that I got later on today, but about perfection. And you've heard me say done is better than perfect, and I do believe that to an extent. Done is better than perfect if it's eliminating you from starting. I've shared this story countless times when I was teaching podcast classes to agents, just how to get your podcast off the ground. The most common question I would get was, what mic do I need? And you've heard me say 1,000 times, if this is your first time listening, this is what I talk about all the time. I use my cell phone for my camera, and this mic that I bought, USB mic that I bought like 7 years ago, and it was like $50-$60. And that's what I use. Don't let, like, that is my done is better than perfect. But when you get on a bigger scale and you're doing things, you need to get a little bit closer to perfect, in my opinion, so you're not just falling apart because you're just slapping things together. So the reason that I wanted to bring that podcast up, and I'll put a link to that podcast in the notes, because this is it was pretty profound on kind of what she was sharing, and it kind of made me realize that yes, we're all unique, but we're also not, right? There's so many things. I would say, like, there's so many things that we think that it's just us and we're on an island alone by ourselves. And what the first time I really realized that a lot of us have very similar, not the same, but very similar experiences, and even tragedies and things like that. That where sometimes we think it's isolated to us. I was at a Tony Robbins event back in, I think it was 2015, and we were in Sacramento, to do the fire walk and all that stuff. But at one point he said, he called on a guest from the crowd, and she said, what's the deal? And she was basically saying that she wanted to start her career, but like didn't seem like her husband was backing her and all this stuff, and she didn't feel like an adequate mother. And the reason she didn't feel like an adequate mother is because she had a miscarriage. And so Tony stops her right there, and he says, and then probably about 18,000 people in this arena. That's where the Sharks play. So I'm guessing that's probably about the size of it. But he said, how many people here have been affected by a miscarriage? And like, it was insane. I would say like 90% of the hands went up. It blew my mind. And he's like how original, like joking with her, like how original that's what's holding you back and making you feel this way. And so as we sit here and we're like comparing ourselves and like against social media, she brings up social media, and it's never been a bigger time to be more perfect, right? like or having the desire to be more perfect when we are all far from perfect. One of the things that she, like, this is probably the best advice that I've heard on this subject, where she was talking about like internal thoughts. Like, my thoughts go crazy. Like, I think about things like, okay, just control your thoughts, and it's easier said than done because most of us cannot control our thoughts. But she was talking about the way that she handles it, and she has some of her patients handle it, is that in order to control the thoughts, she understands that we can't control the thoughts, but we can control how they're kind of delivered, right? So, for instance, I'll just give you the one example that she gave. That was, let's say you are worried that your thoughts are that your boss is going to come in and fire you. Just walk in the door and just fire you. She's like, put a clown nose on that boss as you're visualizing it, right? So now it's like okay, that thought is still going to be happening, but now you can kind of not downplay it, but kind of take some like take the edge off and not stress yourself out so bad about it. But the two posts that I'm talking about, one of them you've probably seen bouncing around social media a bunch, and this one I think is, I'm not going to comment on whether or not I like it or not. But it is going around right now, and it is kind of putting into perspective for people that are in the industry. And if you are in the industry and you're struggling, these two posts I think you should really pay attention to. One was that 74% of agents didn't sell a home in the last year. Like, that's not great. It's not exciting, but there is something to take from it when you're beating yourself up and be like, what's so wrong with me? What's so wrong with me? Like, there's a lot of other people in that same boat, right? So I'm not saying that it's awesome and like misery loves company or anything like that. But what I'm saying is, for yourself, while you're beating yourself up, understand also that other agents aren't crushing it. As like, when you look on Facebook and you're like, oh my gosh, that person sold another home. If you do any digging at all, and I'm not saying to waste your time doing this, but if you need a way to like collect yourself, if you see a post on Facebook and you're like, God, why is that person crushing it and I'm not? If you have the ability to take a look and see what they've done, there's many times, not saying the majority, but I'm saying many times where the person is listed as a certain niche, or they're claiming to have, not claiming, but it's implied that they've sold this home or that home or this home. A lot of times you're going to see that they're showing other homes that aren't their listings, they aren't their closings. So understand, like, don't beat yourself up over that. The other one that I saw, the other post was that it was talking about how they know people with 10,000 followers, like the Vanity metrics, right? They know people with 10,000 followers and do less than 100,000 a year. They knew people who had 10,000 views doing less than 10,000 a year. But then they also knew people that had 4 likes on a video or a post that were doing $1 billion in production. And so keep that in mind as well. Not only in the 100,000 market, that's just an arbitrary number that's been pulled out that people use like as the benchmark. But it really doesn't matter. Like, the way Gary Vee talks about it, our CEO, Sean Maiku, he was on stage yesterday, I believe. I saw a video of him speaking, talking about, us being a place where people can come and do what's best for them and not have to like adhere to something. Like, there's some people out there that want to sell 4 homes, and that's awesome for them. That's exactly what they want. There's people that want to sell 400 homes, and that is awesome for them, but it's also just for them. So the comparison is the thief of joy, which we've heard multiple times before. But those things are things that I think we need to pay attention to when we are comparing ourselves to others. And I have a story that I won't share today because we're going on a little bit longer. But I have a story that I will share in the future that's a very personal one to me, one that I had to ask a question myself about. Was I comparing? Was I envious? It was a real question that I needed to ask myself, and I was very comforted with the answer that came from it, because I had to be real with myself. But sometimes, there's people that, selling 30 homes a year is great money. So is, being a doctor or being a long distance truck driver. But maybe those things you don't want to do. The same thing is selling 4 homes to 40 homes. Maybe you don't want to sell 40 homes. So don't beat yourself up over that. And the last thing I'll touch on is the phone call that I got today. And it was someone that saw a previous video that they've watched the episodes before, and saw a recent one and contacted me asking me why did you leave Epic to go to Simply Home, and we had a good conversation. And during that conversation, they were like, I need to do more video. I know that I need to, but I'm not at your level yet, and I'm not at so many other people's level. So the point of the conversation we kind of had, when we kind of signed off, I was like, hey, get back out there, like do video, like go get your videos going, because that's really that. It's like, you can look at the numbers on mine. I think I have 210 subscribers. You would think that that is so low and not very many at all, but it's a lot for somebody who has zero, right? But I started at zero. The other thing is that you look at these numbers and you think, oh, that must not be successful. However, the amount of people that have called me from these videos, just the other day, I'm talking with someone that we could possibly be opening up, adding, teams in Texas, Arizona, Oklahoma, and potentially Utah, right? I said on here that we're looking for a Utah broker, and we are, and that is something that came out from only 210 subscribers, right? So don't beat yourself up if you have low subscriber count. You don't know what to say, what to do. Just get out there and do it, practice it, get going. Like, I'm getting back in the groove because I haven't been really on since July. So I'm slowly getting back into it, like the groove that I was in, trying to make sure that I'm doing it daily. Once you get in the flow, you can start to kind of know, have an idea what you're going to talk about and stuff like that. I don't put, like, I wrote notes down here while I was on the walk. Listen, I was like, oh, this is what I want to talk about because I think people need to hear this today. And that's pretty much it. Use your earbuds, use your cell phone, use whatever. If you are wanting to do that, not saying that you have to do video. If you enjoy doing video or you want to try doing video, do it. Just do it. That's it. So I'll leave you with that, and hopefully that gave you a little bit of nugget, or a couple nuggets in there that might help you out. And if you want to check it out, it's called the Happiness Lab. I'll be sure to put it in the show notes for you so you can go check it out. So with that being said, I'll see you in the next one. Have a great one.